Hey, welcome, good thinkers. Welcome to Good Thinking Live. I am so glad if you are here that you are here. We're live streaming Monday mornings, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time on LinkedIn Live and on YouTube Live. So if you want to subscribe, you can either follow on LinkedIn or you can go to YouTube and check out the channel, hit that bell and get notifications when we are going live, because we are looking for people from all across the globe who are willing to spend a little bit of time, taking away time from all the time we spend on what to think, so we can luxuriate in thinking about our thinking to improve how we think. I got in very late last night, so I'm a little bit tired, little bags under the eyes, but we are here to talk about unlocking hidden perspectives. So I'm going to say hi to Team Live. Marcello, welcome, welcome. Let us know who you are and where you're from, because it's really fun to see perspectives from all across the globe. Barkley from Washington, D.C. Welcome, Marcello. Welcome, Barkley. As people are coming on, definitely let us know who you are and where you're from. All right. Today, we're going to talk about unlocking perspectives. And perspectives are a weird thing because it really seems like if we read enough about a person, if we study enough about a person, or if we even spend enough time around a person, that we have an idea of their perspectives. And research doesn't really support this. So I think it's going to be a fun way to think about perspective taking in a new way that may help you with your decision making, which is kind of the goal, becoming better thinkers. Stephen, welcome from Steven says, welcome from Portland, Oregon. Normally he comes up with like some clever twist to hide the fact that he's from Portland, Oregon, but now you've outed yourself as from Portland, Oregon. Watching from Albania. Hi, Day. Welcome from Albania. So fantastic. I hope that you all are watching and participating because we need your input. All right, here's the first question. You know, we always start with a question. All right. But I'm going to welcome Stephen from Uganda. I have a very good friend from Uganda. I'd love to travel there someday. So welcome. All right. When you're curious about what people are thinking or what they want, it could be someone you know, someone you read about, someone you just happen to come across. How do you find out what people are thinking about? How do you find out? Okay, so here is how do you find out what people are thinking about. So I'm going to give you some options, and I'm going to say hello from some more good thinkers that are coming on. All right. How do you find out? A, you can just write, do you guess? It's obvious that people want what I want, like the old golden rule. So do you just kind of think, if I were them, I would want this. So that's what I'm going to assume they want. If I was them, I would probably, even if you don't agree with them, if I was them, I would do this. Okay. Or if I were them, was them, were them. Anyway, B, do you guess? It's obvious what people want. It's just obvious. We're all the same. It's obvious what people want. Or C, do you ask? If you said C, so you guess because people want what you want. Or if I was them, I would want what? I would want this. That'd be A. Or you guess because you think we all want the same thing. Or you say C, you would ask. And if you would ask, how do you know that people will be comfortable telling you what they think or what they want? Do you ask in a way that you think is strategically engaging so that people would not feel judged in a way that would prevent them from sharing what they really want? How do you know people's perspective? A, B, or C? All right, now I'm going to welcome some more good thinkers on the show. Ray, we've got Ray. I think he might have put aha. So Ray's worked on a really cool document that I have just started delving through. And so I love this link being here. This is great. All right. Welcome from Rhode Island. I think I'm going to visit Rhode Island later this year. Welcome, Marcello. Okay, from Atlanta, Georgia. Fantastic. I lived in Atlanta, Georgia. And Ashley from Canada. And Salim, where are you from, Salim? Welcome, Salim. Here we go. From Oman, welcome, Salim. Okay, Ray says A. They want what I want because I believe in the false consensus bias. Okay, so Ray has to get the first rubber chicken. Yes. So a lot of people, and this is the false consensus bias, is when we think that people believe like we believe. And it probably is heightened when we tend to be around a lot of people that we might think are like-minded people. So we think, okay, yeah, doesn't everyone believe this? If everyone had the same information that I have, that we would all believe this. It's just that people don't have the information, or they're not as smart, or whatever. False consensus bias. Welcome, Tim from Minneapolis. And welcome. Okay, let's see. Get this pronunciation. Shashidara. Welcome, Shashidara. And all right, the chicken. We've got the rubber chickens going. Okay, Ray got the first rubber chicken. So let me know, let everyone know. What do you think? How do you decide when you're trying to take someone's perspective? All right, next question. How well do people understand you? Do most people understand you really well? Or do most people understand you not well at all, or somewhere in between? How well do people understand you? And as you're thinking about this, as you know, I'm going to give you more and more questions, because that's what we do. We ask a lot of questions to think about our thinking. All right. So how well do people who are not like you understand you? And how well do people who are like you understand you? Do you think the people who are not like you understand you more than people who are like you? Do you think that they do? Do you think that being like-minded helps you understand people's perspectives more? And the next question is, and you can just kind of answer, any free thoughts that you want to share I'm going to bring your chats in, as long as there's not too many. I'm going to try to bring them all in. Sometimes I miss. It's not that I selected yours out. I just couldn't see it as it was scrolling by. Are you better than average at understanding other people's perspective? Are you average, better than average, or worse than average? See if good thinkers think that maybe they're better than average or worse than average. Okay. Oopsie, we've got, okay, not well. Okay, so Lily says not well. Hi, everyone. Tamar from Kuwait. Welcome from Kuwait. All right, so Lily says not very well. I'm going to take this banner off so we have more room for our comments. All right. So do you think you're better than average, or worse than average at understanding? And let me ask another question. Are you understood? Do you think people understand you better than they understand other people, or not as much as they understand other people? Can they really understand your perspective, or are you more mysterious? What do you think? Let us know in the chat, because that's what's fun. We gotta get this going. All right. So is your ability to understand others, to really understand them, greater than, less than how well you understand people are not like you? How does this all work? Okay. Are you different? People can't understand you, but you can understand others. If they're like you, they can understand you more. How does all this work? And then we're going to share some of the research. So we have, let's see. Okay. So we have Arfan from Iran. Welcome. Ashley. Yes. Being like-minded helps me understand other people's perspective because we have a similar way of thinking. Okay. And how do you know when that perspective kind of drops off? Like, we're thinking about all of these things, but wait a minute. Do you really understand them? Can you really take the perspective because you think you're like-minded? I don't know. We'll see. There's some research. All right. Today I realized that people don't understand me at all. That's interesting. What about you? Can you understand others? Okay, Arvin, I find that people who are like-minded tend to understand them better. Okay. And it could be that you understand people who are like-minded about the things about which you're like-minded. And maybe there's all kinds of things that if you really delved, you don't understand them more. Who knows? Okay. So Day says, I think like-minded people understand each other's perspectives more. All right. I used to feel like I was better than average, but the more I think about it, I'm learning that I have no idea what people are thinking, Lily. I'm going to give a rubber chicken to that. I'm going to give rubber chickens to a lot, but I have to give a rubber chicken to that one. I think that's a lot of self-awareness that can be uncomfortable, and I gotta reward that. All right. Hi, Ben Ketter from Algeria. I always try to pronounce, but as the names are scrolling, if I mispronounce, I'm sorry, but I'm going to try to pronounce. I love all the names. Okay. So, let's see. Sophia Marish, amen. Okay, here we go. I hope I understand people, but I'm not sure anymore. Fair enough. Tim says, as I've gotten older, I ask a lot of questions only. Okay, I'm going to tell you that Tim's foreshadowing a little bit of the research, so this is good. And very rarely do I share my thoughts on topics unless I'm asked specifically. Okay, I think that's a very common thing. I think a lot of people are not sharing their thoughts because they're not asked specifically. I think Tim is foreshadowing some of the research. So remember Tim's comment, rubber chicken worthy comment, because I think that's going to shed some light into the ways that we think about perspective taking in a way that really doesn't jibe with our true ability to take perspective, and some of the environment that we're putting ourselves into, where we put guardrails around questions that we can and can't ask that prevent us from doing anything but assuming that we understand someone's perspective, because that's all we can do. So guardrails around questions that we can and can't ask. And what does that do to our ability to understand other people's perspective? Okay, so if you think about perspective taking, we normally think the ability to see the world through someone else's eyes. And there's no shortage of articles that celebrate the benefits of perspective taking, sales, influence, collaboration. I mean, it seems like everything matters, and everything that matters in business can benefit from perspective taking. But the question is it possible? And then the second question, how many of you are leaders, business leaders, whether it's your family or whatever, but how many of you are leaders? You think of yourself as a leader or an emerging leader. How many of you think that? All right. So we're going to pull in some comments. And we've got Mohammed says, I hope I understand people's perspective. I think we all hope, but may not be the strategy. I hope so too, but I totally hear you. I agree. Tim, yeah. So another LinkedIn, see, it says LinkedIn learning or LinkedIn user. So I don't always see who this is. But Tim says, same here. I tend to only give my thoughts in environments where it's been shown that they are truly listening. I think this is really hinting at something that's important. And I think it's something that might be a little problematic in our culture, where there's a lot of guardrails around what you can and can't ask. All right. Iva says, from the Czech Republic, I think my understanding is average, and I think it all depends on the question asked. I'm going to say back to, keep in mind this question thing. I'm loving this theme of questions, because I think most of us feel that we can understand others' perspectives. If there's someone famous they've been written about, or if there's someone we know, we can look at them and kind of think, oh, that's what I would do. Or we're like-minded. So they must be thinking what I'm thinking. They must be doing what they're doing for the same reasons that I would be doing what I'm doing, because we're like-minded. We're friends, right? All right. Now, Orville says empathy. And empathy, we've done empathy. It's a super interesting topic. I think there is a lot of conflation, or people mix up or confuse or whatever, the sympathy and compassion and empathy. So in this case, we're probably talking about intellectual empathy, really understanding whether we agree or not. Safe environments. Teresa Hunter, safe environments. Okay, so do safe environments, who wants to take this controversial? When you think of a safe environment at work, do you think that the safety guardrails, I'm kind of feeding it a little bit, do you think the safety guardrails have an unintended consequence of not allowing or not being able to take someone's perspective? Or you think overall that safety, where your guardrails about what you can and can't ask, outweigh the benefits? Like the benefits outweigh the disadvantages, if there are disadvantages. What do you think about safe environments? When Tim says safe environments, are you thinking it's great that they're safe, but there's a downside, or it's great that they're safe, or there are entire downsides? All right, start with yourself. We're gonna do a little experiment. If you were to make a list of a lot of controversial issues, and then you note your perspective on each of these controversial issues, would it reveal that you're an expert in a very particular way of thinking that can signal to people that they're like-minded? Or do you think that you would be, if you listed all your perspectives, people would be like, oh, you're keeping your options open. I don't see a type of person, because all of your perspectives or all of your controversial issue positions don't line up or do line up. Do you think all of your controversial issues, could your friends likely guess your perspectives on a bunch of controversial issues, just based on you show a particular way of thinking? That's what I'm wondering. So what do you think? You think they would or they wouldn't? All right. So let's see. We've got, okay, I'm going to take Michael out of order. Can you really understand what someone is thinking without first clearing the noise from your own thoughts? Excellent. From the school of thought that you never really know unless you're brave enough to ask. All right. That's got to get another rubber chicken. I think there's something a lot of you good thinkers are hitting on that I'm that jives with the research. Okay, so we've got safety guardrails are defense against negative consequences. Fantastic. So do the negative consequences of asking questions outweigh the benefits of needing to ask questions to be able to understand people's perspectives? So we've got LinkedIn lose of Slovakia, and we've got Sophie. Okay, so they wouldn't. So we'll see. And partly we get the scroll out of order. So sorry about that. If I bring in an answer and it doesn't apply to the question, it's kind of the nature of the LinkedIn or of the live. Sorry about that. All right. So here are a few issues to get you started. Do you think that Google's AI is sentient? How many of you watched the fact that someone from Google that worked on their AI revealed that the AI is sentient? Do you think we have a right to know when a company has created a sentient AI? So this is kind of a controversial topic. It's not like at the core of maybe what you think of as controversial, but maybe it's a little bit of a future controversial topic. Do you think we have the right to know when a company has a sentient AI? Do you think we have the right to know? All right. So as they're coming in, I would say, oh, so okay. So I think Sophia said they wouldn't understand my perspective on everything by looking at my controversial issues. Ray says they could probably guess my position on many topics and or classify me. Okay. And Tim says, I wonder if I ask questions to discover not facts, but the method and sources of their information. That tells me much more than the actual fact. I want to know how they're thinking, their thinking methodology. Excellent. Excellent. All right. So do you think we have the right to know? And then the question is, how will we decide and who will decide? So if you're working at a company and you think, gosh, I think humanity has the right to know if this AI is sentient. And I feel that, this is the line that crosses where yesterday it wasn't and today it was, as measured by this. Once I see that, I don't care what my company says. I'm going to tell the world. These are some of the issues that I think we're going to be grappling with in the not too distant future, because a lot of people think, oh, we're not there yet. Well, how will we know when we're there? Is there some line that we're going to cross, some measurement where we're all going to agree? Or am I going to think it is and you're not going to think it is? How are we going to grapple with those kinds of questions if we don't even understand people's perspectives about things like, should companies hire unpaid interns? Do we, what gender and what about gender and the highest levels of competitive sports? How do we deal if we can't even talk about these issues? If we can't even ask people's opinions about these issues because they're deemed controversial at work, how are we going to grapple with some of the more maybe important existential questions that show up first as controversial issues at work? All right. So what do you think? Many of you have said, the way I know about perspectives, or the best way I know about perspectives, is that I ask. But then on the flip side, you're not allowed to ask some things because they're deemed controversial or they're deemed unsafe. So how are we going to get different perspectives? How are we going to uncover hidden perspectives if the best way to get those perspectives and really truly get those perspectives is to ask? But we're not allowed to ask. And this is where we get into some of the research that proves that the best way to get these perspectives is to ask. I'll tell you a little bit about the research. You already kind of guessed the answer. All right. So Ray says, is it sentient? No. Right to know? Tough question. Does someone have the right to know that you've had a child? I like that question. Does someone have the right to know that you've had a child? All right. How do you know when an AI is sentient? As measured by what? Do we all have to agree? What if we can't talk about it? What if it's part of the company's intellectual property? How do we address things that could have existential impact on humans? How, when we can't even talk about, like a gender issue at work or gun control at work, because it's like too controversial. How do we get perspectives? How do we uncover hidden perspectives when the guardrails around safety are tight? What's the trade-off? I don't have the answer. I just have the questions. So Tim says, right to know? Not sure. Need more context to have an opinion. Fair enough. Ask in a diplomatic way. All right, that's great. What's a diplomatic way? All right. So do you have thoughts or questions? Maybe it's at work. Let's just say at work. LinkedIn, we're here. It's business, right? Do you have thoughts or questions that you're afraid to share or ask? Yes or no? I have things that I don't ask, but I'm really curious about. Do you work in a culture of curiosity where, as long as diplomatic questions, and I don't know how you frame something as diplomatic, but as long as you're artful in your question, you can ask anything. What do you have the right to know? And how do you uncover hidden perspectives with the guardrails around questions? All right. So, okay, let's see, tough question. It depends. Exactly. It depends. All right. Lily says, I don't think the workplace is the right forum for many controversial issues. There are people we forced to more or less live with who we don't care about in a personal sense. Okay. So that's one perspective. I think that's a really interesting perspective. We got one perspective where you're supposed to bring your whole self to work. And then another perspective where, can we really bring our whole selves to work? Or does it only mean that we can, share our vulnerabilities, but we can't we can't ask questions, or we can't divulge? Or how are we thinking about this? And particularly when we're blurring the lines between work and home, or we go to work in the metaverse. How do we think about questions and perspective taking? What do we do when the best way to really uncover hidden perspectives, frankly, the only way, and like I said, I'll share some research, is to ask, but we can't ask? How do we benefit from multiple perspectives when the best way to get those perspectives is locked away from us? All right. So address the issue with leaders in a calm manner. So if you ask the questions in a calm manner, should people be offended? Michael says, before you ask your questions, you have to lose your own bias to understand the answer from a non-judgmental position. Yeah. How do we lose our own bias? I don't know. So I'm going to tell you about a couple of studies that are interesting. One study asked people to predict the thoughts, feelings, and preferences of other people, ranging from complete strangers to spouses. So like from people they totally didn't know to people they should ideally know intimately. And they found that perspective taking did not have the effect that it's often expected to. So some participants viewed photos of other people, and they assessed the emotions of those people based on their eyes and their facial expressions and their body posture. And in other studies, these participants watched videos of people and judged whether their expressions were fake or genuine, and whether their statements that they made were true or false. And in each experiment, one group was told to engage in perspective taking, take the perspective of the other person, and then tell me, either how they're feeling or what if they're lying or not lying, things like this. But they were told, take the perspective of another person. And then the other group, in many of these different experiments, the other group, control group, was just told, is the person lying or not lying? Is the person angry or this or that? So one was specifically told, take the perspective of the other person. And the other group was just told to guess. Who did better in experiment after experiment? The people who were told to take the perspective, or the people who were just told to assess how the people were feeling or whether they're told the truth? The control group or the perspective taking group? Who did better? Anyone want to take a stab? Put it in. Rubber chickens just for guessing. Rubber chickens for guessing. All right. So as you are putting in your answers, if I'm telling you or you tell me, take the perspective of that person, maybe your own spouse, maybe the stranger. And by the way, the answer is the same whether it's your spouse or a stranger. If you are told to take the perspective of another person, is that helpful? Well, it turns out, what do you think they found? Were the perspective takers more or less accurate? Aha! So Loretta is right, the control group. Being told to take someone else's perspective seems like maybe it would do as well as a control group, but it turns out in experiment after experiment, being told to take someone else's perspective is not effective. As a matter of fact, it's less effective than just guessing. No, yeah, exactly. So perspective taking group. Ashley says perspective. Nope. Ray says both. I would have guessed both. I would have thought both. I would have thought just being told to take the perspective doesn't change how well I assess someone's emotion, how accurately I assess someone's emotion, or how accurately I assess their honesty. I would have thought, it's the same. No, it turns out, the results, I would have thought the results were the same. I would have totally thought that too. Nope. Yes, as it turns out, the control group did better. They were more accurate in assessing people's perspectives. But there was one thing. So if you're told to take someone's perspective and that actually backfires, what is the one condition that actually was better than the control group? Well, research suggests that you gain understanding about someone only when you actively acquire new information about them. Not new information that you read that someone else perspective taking. So a historian who's perspective taking about someone whom they've never met because they were dead 100 years before they wrote the book, or maybe they even knew them. And so you read more information from that historian, you would think you would get a better perspective, and you might have more information, but there's only one way that, at least in the research, it shows that there is a level of accuracy that improves. And what is that one way? Anyone want to guess? You've already hinted at it. Some of you have already hinted at it. One way. I know, I thought it was interesting too, because I would have guessed both. The control group remained objective. Maybe that's it. But there's one way. Does anyone want to guess? There's only one way that people are able to really get accurate about at least what people say their perspectives are. Maybe I'm not telling you my true perspective. I don't know. Does anyone want to guess? Okay, Rima says, I think that if we're told to take someone's perspective, we might second guess our initial read on the situation. Absolutely. Or we might start thinking, if I was them, that I would do this. And maybe we think that just putting ourselves in that situation would make us more accurate. Turns out not so much. There's only one way, and Loretta's going to get the rubber chicken. Ask questions. The only way to improve perspective taking is to perspective get. Not to take, but to get. And the only way to go from perspective taking to perspective getting, to uncover hidden perspectives, is to ask. Just what Loretta says. Now, here's the question. Do you experience any of these things at work? Fear of challenging authority, fear of challenging ideology, fear of accidentally offending someone who's not like you, fear of finding out that you don't understand people as well as you think you do. Any of these things. Do any of you feel these at work? You don't want to challenge this, don't want to offend, don't want to challenge authority. Fear of asking for help and looking weak. Fear of not being part of the in-group who clearly all knows and agrees. False consensus bias, right? Or Michael or Ray. What else? Do any of you have these fears at work? So going back, Tim says, build relationships first, inviting a dialogue. And all of this is maybe not whether you ask the question, but how you ask the question. But here's the situation. If there is this fear at work where, we're not perfect at asking questions. So if we're just told you can't ask those questions, you can't even test to see if maybe I could have asked them in a better way. If we never learn to ask better questions, because we're not allowed to ask questions because of fear of revealing a different ideology, fear of not overstepping my bounds. I'm not the senior leader. I can't do that. How many think fear is a big part? How many think it's worse than it used to be? How many think that safe environment where there are guardrails around what you can and can't ask, even if understanding someone's perspective requires that, how many of you think that fear is something now kind of pervasive in work? So we've got Loretta, yes, and yes. We've got yes to most of the above. Lily, we have got fear is the single most barrier to improvement. We've got Ray, fear of admitting that you fear questioning leadership. Yes, of admitting on LinkedIn that you fear questioning leadership. That's good. That's meta. That's thinking about your thinking. I love it. I love it. I love it. Michael says, those fears are now imposed on people. You're not encouraged to ask questions. I wonder if this is true. And as we wrap up, there's more. I'm going to skip some of the other stuff because we got to wrap it up right at the 30. When you think about what you're really curious about at work, are you encouraged and empowered to ask questions? Are you brave enough to ask questions? When you think about what you're really curious about at work, are you encouraged and empowered to ask questions? Or are you afraid that those questions may encroach into space that may not be safe for other people, or may reveal you as asking things that are none of your business, or not within your pay grade, or whatever? Is there fear that prevents cultures of curiosity from flourishing at work? That's what I do for a living. So, I have to ask these questions. All right. So Rima says, I think it's worse than it used to be. One reason is that we're told we shouldn't ask questions, but do your own research. Interesting. All right. And here is the thing. Because the opposite of fear is not bravery. It's not courage. It's not empowerment. It's not vulnerability. Not shame. It's not authenticity. Sometimes authenticity, you just see someone being vulnerable and you say, oh, you're being so authentic. Okay, maybe you're just. The opposite of fear is curiosity. And here's the deal about uncovering hidden perspectives. In all the research, you can't guess. You can't assume. You can't even know that your own spouse thinks exactly like you. And if you put too many guardrails around curiosity, then because for whatever reason, maybe they're good reasons, maybe they're worthy reasons. There's reasons that we do things, but there are trade-offs, but you have to understand what the trade-offs are. We have to understand that the trade-off is an inability to uncover hidden perspectives. And hidden perspectives is how we grow, how we see the world in ways, how we innovate. Everything that matters to business is benefits from uncovering hidden perspectives. But if too many guardrails around the number one way to uncover hidden perspectives, then that's a trade-off you're going to have to decide. But in every decision, see the unintended consequences. So thank you so much. I'm going to bring in the last few comments. We've got Loretta, I'm encouraged to ask, but not sure it's authentic. Fantastic. Whatever authenticity means. Tim says, most businesses that I work with, no fear. That's good. Sanjeev says, no fear. That's great. Tim, curiosity. I've a fear to ask questions is real, but I believe it's getting much better. It's important to raise curiosity in people. I love that. It makes me happy to hear something positive, because from everything I'm learning, all of my, anecdotal research is that there is more fear around questions in the workplace than almost ever before. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's hope I'm wrong. But it's a trade-off that we must consider. Thank you so much. See you next week. Keep on coming in the chat. Show up. We're here most Mondays, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 4 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live. You can go to Becky Saltzman, hit that bell for notifications. Thank you so much for being here. And we will see you next week. If I don't show up on some Mondays, it means I, was traveling, which is I'm going to be doing a little bit in the summer. Have a great week.